Oh, woo! Man, this is a funky groove. It feels so good. How you doing, everybody? Nick DiVirgilio here. Welcome back to Groovy Thursdays. We made it to groove number 31. This week's song is called Harridan from the brand new Porcupine Tree record Closure continuation with the fantastic drumming of Gavin Harrison. Let's go. There's many reasons why this drum groove is so cool. I'll give you 4, and I'm sure you guys out there could come up with a lot more. But number 1, it's from the mind and hands of Gavin Harrison. That's cool. Number 2, it's brand new Porcupine Tree music. If you're a fan of the band like I am, that's really cool, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing them play live with my buddy Randy McStein on guitar. This is the guitar move right here. I'm really proud of Randy. I'm super happy that he has the gig, and I think he's going to knock it out of the park, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Number 3, it's in 5/4. 5 has got to be my favorite time signature, odd time signature to play in. It's just, there's something about it. It could be very funky, lots of backbeat in 5/4. It can be laid back, it can be technical, all in the same thing. It's only one more than 4, which means it's not too far away from 4/4, so it's not too crazy. There's a lot of things about 5/4 that are really good. And number 4 in my list here is that it just plain rocks. And grooves that rock are an awful lot of fun to play. I clocked the groove in at 127 BPM, and what we're looking at here is the opening section of the song, the first 8 bars. Now, when the vocal comes in after this opening section, the groove is the same, so you know it repeats for a little while. But the groove is really only a bar long. But what Gavin does is every other bar, at the end of every other bar, he throws in a little bit of ear candy. A hit on the tom, a buzz roll, a hit on the splash cymbal. It's just enough to change it up a little bit. Make it very musical, of course, keep the groove flowing forward, and again, it's nice ear candy. One other thing to mention, because I find it kind of interesting, the little ear candy bits, the tom hit, the buzz roll, the splash cymbal, all that kind of stuff. I don't know this for a fact, I think they may be interchangeable. And I say this because there's a great live version of them playing this tune recorded at Air Studios, which you could see on YouTube. And Gavin is playing the same stuff, just in a different order. So maybe he just wants it to be different in a live performance. Maybe he just plays it however he feels in the moment. Could be that way. Maybe he just wants it different than the recorded version. I say all this so that when you're at home learning this groove, after you learn it the way Gavin did on the record, maybe you'll come up with your own little bits of ear candy, your own little fill here, your hit there, whatever it may be. And then take those back and compare it to what Gavin did. Gavin is a great study as a drummer, not only for his grooves, of course, but his fills and his flourishes, where they lay, they always seem to have great weight to them, if that makes sense. They can be very simple, like the ones in this groove, or very technical, because Gavin can play anything, of course. But boy, do they sound good, and they're definitely worth diving into. So, enough of me yapping, let's dive in. I transcribed the first 8 bars of the song. The song opens up with that killer bass line that Steven Wilson is playing. There's a tiny little fill, and then it goes into the first 8 bars. There's a lot of the same thing happening in each bar as well. Your hi-hat hand is playing 8th notes, and your snare drum hand is playing on beat 2 and beat 5 of every bar. So think of this, because it's rocking, think of this as a rock beat just in 5/4. Again, backbeat on 2 and on 5. The special sauce, as I like to call it, in this groove happens in the kick drum pattern and what happens at the end of every bar. Let's first go through the kick drum pattern. What's neat about it is that even though the hi-hat's playing straight 8th notes, the snare drum is on the backbeat of 2 and 5, the kick drum is utilizing a lot of the other 16th notes, the in-between 16th notes, either right before the snare or right after the snare drum, and it gives it nice flow. So you play on beat 1, then you play on the last 16th note of beat 1, the then on the and of 2, then on the 3E, second 16th note, and the and of beat 3, right on the downbeat of beat 4, the last 16th note of beat 4, and the E of beat 5, the second 16th note of beat 5. As always, here at Groovy Thursdays, I'm going to clap the pulse and sing out this rhythm. I encourage you to do the same because you'll really start feeling it. Here's the pulse, a little bit slower than the tempo of the song, but good for this demonstration. Here we go. I'll count out 5 and sing the rhythm for you. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you add the backbeat, the snare drum part, into your vocalization, the groove really takes shape. So here we go again. Here's the pulse, count to 5, and add the snare drum part. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doom, do ka goom, do doom, doom, do ka goom, doom, tukakum, tutum, tukakum, 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 tukakum. Singing out the parts really helps internalize the grooves and bring them all together. I don't know what it is about the voice and the brain and when you clap, but it's different than when you're sitting behind the kit. When you sing the parts out, it just all sort of comes together. I encourage you to try it at home and see what you think. Okay, now let's get to what's going on at the end of every bar. These are very simple things. Again, it's just ear candy, but they're very effective. And one thing to note here is that they all start on 5 and, the upbeat of beat 5. Everything starts from there. Let's get into it. So with bar number 1, the first thing you have is an open hi-hat stab on 5 and. At the end of the second bar, you have the first tom hit. You go to the rack tom on 5 and, but then you immediately follow with a snare drum on 5E and So you have 5E and 5E tom snare, 5E tom snare. Then you go right back into the groove on the downbeat of the next bar. At the end of the third bar, it's the same as the end of the first bar. It's an open hi-hat stab on 5 and. The end of the fourth bar is the same as the end of the second bar, except this time you hit the floor tom instead of the rack tom. So 5 and on the floor tom, immediately followed by the snare on 5E and So floor snare, 5E floor snare, 5E and that kind of thing. At the end of the fifth bar, you have a little buzz roll on 5 and. The end of the sixth bar is the same as the end of the second bar. You're going back to the rack tom, except on the downbeat of the seventh bar, he hits his little chime cymbal. I used a splash cymbal in my demonstration. Then at the end of bar 7, you have another buzz on 5 and, just like at the end of bar 5. Then at the end of bar 8, he changes it up just a little bit to set up the first vocal verse that is coming up. So on beat 4, you're going to play all 4 16th notes, starting with your kick drum right on the downbeat of beat 4, snare drum on the second 16th note, the E, floor tom on the and then back to the kick drum on the So you have kick, snare, floor, kick, snare, floor, kick, snare, floor, kick. Practice just those 4 notes to get the coordination down, and what you're going to find, you speed this up a little bit, and those 4 notes can be a really cool drum fill as well. Then after those 4 16th notes on beat 4, on beat 5, you hit 2 cracking snare drums on the first 2 16th notes of beat number 5, 5E. What that's doing is giving the drum part a tiny little 8th note break. That's really just a short space, right? An 8th note stop. But it really sets up the first verse tremendously well because it just gives you a little breath, and then the vocal starts and the groove comes right back in. And that's why I find this drum groove so cool. That little stop at the end, right before the first verse, the ear candy bits peppered throughout this very simple but rocking and funky groove, they're just all so musical. And that's what I appreciate about Gavin's drumming so much. You know, he can do all the technical stuff, of course. He can play as fast as he wants to. I mean, come on, he's been in King Crimson for all these years, and that music is totally hard, some of it, right? Really outside and difficult. But you listen back to early Porcupine Tree, all the way up to the present, those early records, and now, his drumming is, again, has such weight to it. I love the word weight when it comes to drumming. And, you know, his backbeat is really solid. Whenever he plays a 2 and 4 on a regular 4/4 groove or 2 and 5 in this groove, you know that that's the backbeat. They're solid, they're in your face, the time is good. All of that stuff really makes his drumming so musical and a great study. And there you go, groove number 31 in our Groovy Thursdays Hang. The song is Harridan from the Porcupine Tree record closure/continuation with the fantastic drumming of Mr. Gavin Harrison. If you like what's going on here at Groovy Thursdays, I ask that you like this video, share it with all your friends, subscribe to the channel, keep bringing on those questions and comments for future grooves, and we'll see you here next week for groove number 32. Cheers, everybody.